Howdy, everybody, and welcome to Liberty Libations. My name is Jake Green, and I'm live in a studio in Nashville. Not my usual spot, not my usual camera, but we're going to work with it anyway. Today, we've got Mr. Dave Benner. Dave, thanks for joining tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Great to be with you, chaps, fellow Region 2 peeps. It's good to see you.
Heck yeah. I think Alden is actually... What region is Washington State?
I don't know. I haven't even looked into it
Region
much.
1, I believe.
Yeah, I think that's right.
I won't even be here long, so.
All right. Yeah, you'll be joining Region 2 here in a little while.
Yeah.
Yeah, tonight, actually, man, I am so unprepared. I was filming up until like 10 minutes ago, 20 minutes ago. So I'm not not all that prepared. So let me pull up what we always talk about first.
Are you starting with a clean
Alex
slate?
Stein?
I mean, I wish it was Alex Stein. I just typed in the wrong. Apparently, Great Create.
Pimp on a blimp eating steak and shrimp.
All right. Well, if you're looking for the Great Create, do not go to thegreatcreate.com because that takes you to a weird website. Instead, go to thegreatcreate.org and check out our upcoming festival/convention. Let's see. It's going to be May 12th through the 14th in Cherokee Pines. May 12th and 13th are the fun days. We got bands playing, we got comedy, we got demonstrations for how to more DIY your life. We got people like, let's see, Kristen Hammock's going to be teaching how to make goat dairy cheese making. I had her on the podcast a few weeks ago. We got Dave Miller talking about medical things like how to save yourself in a dire situation. Alan Carroll's going to be talking. I mean, look at that mushroom. It's a freaking giant ass mushroom.
Is that lion's mane? What is that?
Yeah, that's lion's mane.
Yeah.
Good job, Alden. I know your mushrooms.
That's an insane mushroom, and if I saw that growing in the woods, I would run away.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to eat you rather than you eat it.
So if we were going to get weirdly technical, it's not a mushroom. It's a fungus, though.
Shut your mouth.
Sorry.
We're also going to have a live Free Georgia podcast. We're going to do this with a whole group of people live from the convention. So yeah, get your tickets. They're only $42 for the whole weekend, and children 16 and under get in for free. So
and you can pay in Bitcoin.
And you can pay in Bitcoin, y'all. Come on.
Through a BTC Pay server, not even like a BitPay type garbage. We're talking really paying some Bitcoin.
Wow. Gosh, I can't believe we're not selling out at this exact moment.
Well,
anyway. All right. Well, Dave, thanks for joining us tonight. I have a few things lined up for us to talk about, but did you have anything that you had on your mind that you want to address tonight?
Nothing too much, man. Just enjoying my time with you guys. There's the LNC meeting actually this weekend in Albuquerque. I won't be there because of the LPTN convention this weekend, but that'll be exciting. I'm going to try to make your convention. I'm still not 100% sure if I can, but I'd like to. So not much more to say other than I'll roll with the punches, whatever you guys want to talk about. So
nice.
Ooh, LPTN convention this week. That was fun last year when I went.
I'm glad you liked it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where's that convention at, Dave?
Clarksville, Tennessee. It's like 45 minutes north of Nashville. So.
Okay. Nice. Y'all got anything fun planned?
There's a gala Friday night. We have some workshops on Saturday afternoon. That's kind of like a highlight. I'll be on a panel in the morning Saturday. So Saturday we have our officer elections, and Sunday we mostly have bylaw amendments. So kind of run-of-the-mill weekend event, and yeah, it'll be fun.
Nice. Yeah, well, don't overhype it, Dave.
Yeah. You got anyone good? Last year you had Scott Horton there.
We got your boy Chase Oliver coming up. He's speaking at the gala on Friday, and Tom Arnold will speak. I think that's
Libertarian Santa.
Yeah.
All right. Well, my first first topic is an article: COVID backlash hobbles public health and future pandemic response. So
Good.
we've got the Washington Post here whining that everybody who was a vaccine denier and a lockdown protester is making it difficult to lock us down again in the future.
Oh, they're
Well,
already
when you're
planning.
proven right.
I always find it hilarious when like articles from Wall Street and New York Times address something in the exact way that makes it sound like a victory for libertarians. And this article really goes into it. I'm not going to read any of it because it's absurdly long for this show. But I always find that hysterical that two people got together and wrote this as if it's a terrible thing that the government shouldn't be in charge of public health. Yeah. What could go wrong next time?
Public health just sounds like a fake thing to begin with.
Yeah. How is the health of the public? How would you even determine that?
I mean, by any objective standards, I would have to say terrible just in general.
Well, I mean, if you go by BMI, we're pretty bad off.
Yeah, that's fair. I wonder why that is. Do you think it's all the processed food and shit like that?
The seed oils, the soy,
all the seed oils, all those government regulations that they impose on the public, but not on people like Monsanto and all that kind of crap.
Subsidizing of corn, the subsidizing of sugar.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that they're still putting out recommendations that say eating Fruit Loops is healthier than eggs.
So I was going through some things the other day, and I found some of my grandmother's stuff. And she worked for the city of Griffin, public utilities forever. And this was, I think, it was 40s and the 50s she was doing this. But so it was the code from 1921. And I was flipping through it, and it gives the mayor the powers during some kind of public health emergency. He can imprison people. He can force medicate them. He can force vaccinate them. He can add them to the chain gang. There's just this. I'm like, okay, so there's nothing new under the sun. All right.
It
probably does repeat every 100 years. I don't know.
That's crazy. I mean, there are many instances of like local government being just as bad as like federal government oppression and all this crap. So that doesn't exactly surprise me. But the fact that it's like encoded is interesting because I don't think it's like
Are
actually
those laws
written. What's that?
still standing? Or are those like still in effect? Like,
Oh no, they've rewritten the code several times since then.
Okay.
I'm sure. Yeah,
Okay.
because there's not a chain gang anymore.
Gotcha.
well, okay,
You know,
that's fair.
we just leave the trash on the side of the road now.
Right. Yeah. Just mow over it. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Mac. I do have to look way far up in order to share some stuff. This is what happens when you have two monitors.
I was
and you're
just gonna
working on this
say-
little camera.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and the monitor's like right in my face. It's freaking enormous. But it's not my station. It's not my fault. I can't help it.
It's a metaphor for that knowledge is power, you know.
I do look ridiculous. Oh my gosh. I'm looking, you can basically see my whole neck when I look up. It's so stupid.
You can only see your neck when you look up.
And we've got some foreign policy shit. This guy, Vivek Ramaswamy, talking stupid. So let's give him a listen.
Foreign policy, real simple. I try to keep things simple. Two priorities. Above all, everything's about prioritization. Foreign policy is about prioritization. Top two priorities: declare independence from communist China, secure our border, and that includes solving the fentanyl crisis, which is using the U.S. military unapologetically to decimate the cartels. Okay? You want to go Bin Laden on them? Go Soleimani on them. Drone strikes, airstrikes. It is justified military force. It is morally justified. It is justified in the law of war. You have a failed narco state south of the border that won't solve the problem. We can help them for a tiny fraction of what we spent in Ukraine, by the way. We can help them. But if they're not willing to be helped, that government, if they're so captured, we just got to tell them we'll come in and do it for you. And as president, first 6 months, I will. That's about it. Foreign policy, real simple.
Well, at least he's honest.
He's very honest.
Who thinks, like, if you put foreign policy and real simple together in a thought, I already don't trust what you're going to say.
What if you say it 3 times in the same sentence?
Then it's fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, repetition makes it okay.
Yeah.
What could go wrong? The drug war is already going so swimmingly, guys. So
Yeah.
I don't know what you guys are.
Yeah, the
making
CIA
fun of
won
here.
50 years ago. It's fine.
Well, yeah, it was only a couple years ago that they started it, right? It wasn't like it was in the 60s and 70s. You know?
I'm curious what you guys think about. So this brings up a whole thing for me that I'm interested in how you think about, like, more like, so there's mushrooms and weed and things that grow out of the ground, and I think we're probably all like, who cares about that kind of thing? But like, how would you feel about something like heroin or something that's more?
Well, let me ask you, Alden. If heroin was legalized tomorrow, would you go out and do it?
Me?
Yeah.
I wouldn't inject it, but I would dabble in some, like, smoking opioids or something like that. But I live for,
All right.
like, trying things in an experiential way. But I also I've done things like once and twice in my life and never gone back to them, you know. So
Yeah. Well, the basic libertarian policy is don't regulate people from doing what they want to do. If it's
that's
not
what I
harming
figured
anybody
as
else.
far as
So
yeah.
legalize everything, and people will do what they will.
Well, and then but I'm okay. So this guy was talking about, like, fentanyl, but like, if things were legal and, you know, you were just buying heroin from somewhere or whatever, then the fentanyl problem would be gone. I mean, like, it just wouldn't be just insane. I'm not saying it wouldn't bring its own other issues.
Well, and why aren't we talking about bombing the Sackler family?
I don't know as much about that.
They pled guilty. That, like, the people that made OxyContin. They knew
Yeah.
it was formulated to be addictive. They knew it was addictive. They covered it up. They kept on rolling. They admitted it in court, and they paid the fine, which means
which is
it's legal.
slap on the wrist for them.
They just paid the fee.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No. It's never a pretty thing to talk about and to be like, yeah, I'm for legalizing heroin. Like,
Yeah.
it
It's
doesn't
so
sound good
complicated,
because
though.
so many
Yeah.
people have died from heroin overdoses, fentanyl, meth, like all that kind of stuff, that like all those people who have been affected by that it's obviously like a super emotional topic for a lot of
It
people.
is. Yeah.
And so like it's hard to approach that in a way that is sensitive but also like strictly libertarian. Like
I hear
it's
that.
really
Exactly.
difficult.
Some of my
Exactly.
favorite topics, though, the ones that are
And then
really hard.
the numbers they're throwing around with the deaths, I keep hearing like 100,000, 140,000, something like that. If that's the case, I don't know if you guys have seen these Johns Hopkins studies that get thrown around every couple of years. Taking your medication as prescribed kills more people than fentanyl in this country every year. If you combine if you combine that with medical malpractice, that kills more people than heart disease. This is a Johns Hopkins study, and it's come out 2 or 3 times and said that.
And plus, many of the people, I mean, almost all the people that have died from it have died when it is illegal. So to me, that's kind of one of the things that confuses me most is that, well, it already is illegal. So what are you saying? That if you legalize it, my family member wouldn't have died? I don't understand that.
That's actually
Right.
like a really simple and yet like potent point, I think. That's totally fair.
Yeah, but people just want action. Like even when there's really nothing to do, people want the government to do something.
Do you know what I get a lot of pushback on in general from like more the libertarian perspective is like the fear of change, even if something is so bad and so broken, and like how we treat drugs is one thing and education's another thing where people are like, well, we don't want to change it because, you know, the children, and it's like, it's horrible. But
I mean, I wouldn't go full on like, you know, we need clean needles and crack pipes and vending machines on the street corner. I'm not sure that's really the right way to go, especially in like an entertainment district. But yeah, I mean, obviously what's on the books right now is not working, especially when you have the government in cahoots with foreign entities to bring the stuff here and make money on it. Cough,
Right.
cough, Mitch McConnell. So it's just, you know, as long as, you know, you guys obviously don't have to follow the rules, then how can you expect to enforce them on us properly?
right.
Right.
Because you're not even trying to follow them half the time. And then there's the other part that this has been swept under the rug too. Yes, a lot of it's coming through with MS-13, all that kind of stuff. But a lot of the fentanyl deaths are carfentanil. the elephant tranquilizer.
Oh,
And that stuff is like, a grain of salt can kill a grown man. Like there's not enough Narcan in an ambulance to save you. I've got some friends in EMS and they're told, like, if you suspect fentanyl's in the house, they bring the body to the door frame.
Jeez.
Like, don't even go in there and breathe that stuff because
wow.
you can't be saved if you get a good cloud on you.
Wow.
And that's the carfentanil. That's the elephant tranquilizer. That's coming from China.
I don't even know about this.
And so that's, the one that's really causing the problem. No one really wants to say that is that, hey, China's making it and sending it here through Mexico.
Yeah. Alden, what you were saying a second ago reminded me of this thing I actually saw today. I'm going to put it back on the screen. It's just a short little video of a experiment that some scientists did. And it reminded me of we keep doing things because of fear and just because we are conditioned to do them.
We're used to it. We're conditioned. Yeah.
Yeah.
5 monkeys in a cage, and in the middle, a ladder with bananas on top. Every time a monkey went up the ladder, the scientists soaked the rest of the monkeys with cold water. After a while, every time a monkey went up the ladder, the others beat up the one on the ladder. After some time, no monkey dared go up the ladder, regardless of the temptation. Scientists then decided to substitute one of the monkeys. The first thing this new monkey did was go up the ladder. Immediately, the other monkeys beat him up. After several beatings, the new member learned not to climb the ladder, even though he never knew why. A second monkey was substituted, and the same occurred. The first monkey participated on the beating for the second monkey. The replacements repeated until what was left was a group of 5 monkeys that, even though never received a cold shower, continued to beat up any monkey who attempted to climb the ladder. If you asked the new group of monkeys why the beatings took place, the answer would probably be,
well, I don't know. That's just how things are done around here.
I thought that's where that was going, was like that no monkey left had any actual memory of it. But
yeah, I thought that was such a cool experiment.
Yeah, it's it's even more, I mean, it's interesting even on another level, but the crabs in the bucket whole metaphor where you don't even need to put a lid on the bucket because they'll pull each other down kind of thing. But,
yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, it's super interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, people just do shit because that's what's been happening forever.
Yeah.
As long as they can remember and as long as their parents can remember and their grandparents can remember, it's so dumb.
Did you read The Lottery, the short story? It's essentially this. You should, it's 20 pages or something. You should read it. It's awesome.
Interesting.
I mean, it's horrible, but awesome,
Yeah. I wish people could remember back to how many generations are we removed from actual 1776 when we were basically the most libertarian we could have possibly ever been.
Joe Rogan open a stand up with this. He's like, that was 7 people ago. That's not that long.
Oh yeah, he did say that. Right. Yeah. It's just come on, where is that drop off point where the memory just disappears and we forget, how this whole thing started with ultimate freedom.
Or how hard life was and why we had those values too. And we're really comfortable and cozy and complacent. And not to say everyone is on the same level, but the rising tide situation of technology and such. And we all live a very different life now than 7 people ago. Yeah.
7 people ago. That's so good. Yeah. That Rogan guy, he's pretty great. Speaking of Rogan, dadgummit, did it remove stupid computer? Actually, it was probably human error.
Go ahead. Okay.
Here we go. So I don't know if y'all know about this. I'm from Texas, so I know all about the Texit, everything that's happening around Texit.
Like a secession comment?
Yeah. There's a whole organization called Texit, and they've been pushing for secession for quite a while now. I'm a member. I send in my votes all the time. Oh yeah. Yeah, if I ever get the opportunity to move back to a sovereign state of Texas, I'm probably going.
Oh yeah, well, didn't you guys ask for your gold back from the Federal Reserve?
Yeah, they said no.
Yeah, there you go, and that's the merit for all of it, right? Because I was hey, if we ever ask for this back, you got to give it to me.
And then the other day, what's his face? Or maybe not the other day. Maybe it was Abbott had to basically tell Biden that like we're in control of our National Guard, not you. Like you can't send troops here. You can't do you can't take anybody.
Well, Missouri tried to pass a law blocking local municipalities and sheriffs from following federal gun laws. And
the court struck that down, but
the Supreme Court was like, no thanks.
I was just having this conversation. I think the real interesting part is what happens when Missouri says, thanks for your opinion, but we're going to keep doing what we want, and you guys can go screw yourselves.
Yeah, well, and really, and this is one thing I've talked about before, is a plurality of sheriffs can just get together and be like, not enforcing it.
Yep.
Exactly.
No way.
But yeah, this is Rogan. I love Rogan for a bunch of things. His stance on just government role in general, I'm not a huge fan on, but this is him and Malice talking
his
about
hairdo really inspires you.
His hairdo is the basis for my entire existence.
That's the whole thing. Yeah.
I'm getting there, boys.
That's why his last name's Rogaine.
Rogaine. Gosh, I hope he starts doing commercials for Rogaine.
That would be hilarious.
That's a money maker right there.
I think it's a stupid idea.
Why? I'm all for it. I
You're
think
all
it's the
for
best
us
idea.
becoming another country.
Oh, yeah.
And then we get invaded.
Why? By who?
By the rest of the country.
Love Michael Malice.
If you don't want to be apart from all these maniacs, you don't want to be in another country than people that live in Oklahoma. Listen, they hate each other enough about football. Do you know how bad they'd hate each other if Texas was another country?
There's lots
you needed a passport to get in.
There's lots of countries I hate right now. I'm not interested in invading them.
Well, look at Ukraine and look at Russia,
right
next to each other. Well, what do you don't think that there's a possibility in the future, like maybe 100 years from now, if Texas becomes a country that like New Mexico doesn't just invade us?
Wait, but the concern is that right now Washington's going to invade us.
Right now,
yes.
If we stay,
yes.
In what way?
Meaning if Texas or Florida or any of these other states becomes too defiant, or if it's the other way around, if you have a Republican administration and some leftist state decides to be like, we're not going to be enforcing borders or immigration rules, someone might send in the feds. And they talk about it all. In fact, just Governor Abbott had to stand up to Biden and make this bill, or I don't remember what exactly it was, but just insisting that the National Guards answer to him and not to the president. I know this is a bill in New Hampshire as well, I think, called like Save the Guard.
Well, that's why states' rights are important.
Defend the Guard.
Yeah, but it's a lot easier to not have to worry about DC than to expect DC to lessen their power.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I think we should be moving towards a better country.
Yeah, that's what the Republic of Texas would be.
But I think together, collectively.
Yeah, us Texans.
You're hilarious.
It's true. I could not be
I
more
don't
for
want
this.
to have a passport if I need to go to Philly.
What? So don't go to Philly.
I'm going to Philly.
But you have a passport.
I do shows.
You have a passport.
Yeah, but I don't want to use that every time I fly
What's
to
the
fucking
difference?
New Hampshire. That's stupid.
Well, you have to show ID anyway
I
at the
like
airport.
America, being America. I think we just need to figure out why we're in these ideological rifts that are so fucking polarizing and rabid. I think we need to figure that out. I think that's possible.
What do you think? Do you think that's possible?
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely. Historically, I mean, so many people say that it necessitates violence, right? I think that's the biggest refutation I hear. But in so many important junctures in our own lifetimes, it's happened in front of our eyes without violence. Brexit, the dissolution of the Soviet Union, Czechoslovakia, going back a few generations, Norway and Sweden. There's so many counterexamples, but there has to be violence. There you go.
Yeah. Was it Iceland in like 2010 or something like that? They had some. I mean, it didn't wind up actually a shooting fight in the streets, but they had riots, and they, from what I understand, they rewrote their constitution and basically told the IMF and the Rothschild banks, "We don't owe you that much money. That ain't my national debt. Get out of here."
I'm thinking back to the monkeys now, and like if you just keep going at the rate we're going with the same, way of thinking and solutions as before. There's that sound again. And then maybe not, right? But like if you were, if we are the monkeys and if we're like, hey, like let's, shine a light more on like who dumped the water on us and not just each other in the cage kind of a thing, then I think it's possible. And that's what I try to do with conversation is like to get people to kind of see, the man behind the curtain kind of thing more, because like unfortunately, this goes into the violence thing too a little bit. Like the common foe concept, right? Of like, having something to unite over. And I'm not saying to like have a common foe as in to like physically fight that foe, but like I think we're disillusioned as to who the foe is, and we each think it's the other side, kind of a thing. And
capitulation has just become ingrained. The whole when you're out in public and someone's like, get off the sidewalk. Why?
Yeah.
Like that's a normal reaction. But gotta get off. He's got a stick on his hip. So it just needs to be more of that. And I'm not saying like that exact scenario, but just ask why sometimes. And by the way, be prepared for a crappy answer.
So defiance, but not violence.
Yes, exactly.
But not violence. Yeah.
And then and just asking questions, knowing why you have to do certain things this certain way, why things have to be this certain way. That grants enough power to eventually you can get to a point like, no, I'm not doing that. I've been doing that for a while. I know why I've been doing that, and it's stupid. And I'm not doing it anymore.
What would Thomas Paine say in this?
Well, Paine backed secession before it was cool. He wrote the predominant treatise that called for it when he was called a total extremist. He was called a crack-brained zealot for democracy. That's their version of white supremacist, calling someone a white supremacist back then, by the way.
Okay.
Paine was an advocate for independence. The word secession hadn't really entered into the panoply of nomenclature of his day, but he certainly supported it. And he thought that the British government was illegitimate, established by the bastard the bastard brat of Normandy, William the Conqueror. So.
Mm-hmm. And so not just accepting something as like status quo just because it's been, and very principle oriented.
Yeah.
Have y'all heard of the most royal bloodline theory? It was actually rolled out by a middle schooler in California. But all of the U.S. presidents, I don't know about Biden. I didn't check if it got updated yet, but all the U.S. presidents are somehow descended from King George.
Yeah, I did see that. It was all but one, right?
By different degrees, but
which George? I guess.
I think it was George II, right?
Yeah, wow. I knew it was most. I didn't know if it was all officially, but
yeah, I mean it's kind of crazy. Yeah,
even Obama,
some middle schooler figure. Yeah, even Obama.
Yeah, they were saying Obama. Oh, but Obama wasn't. No, he was loosely tied to him. By the way, Obama was also related to the first slave owner in the country.
Interesting.
Oops.
Interesting.
The math, as you go further and further back, I mean, who you're related to expands exponentially. Like, it doesn't take that far back in order to get like really tied into a whole lot of places.
Yeah, aren't like a fourth of us descended from Genghis Khan, anyways, or something?
Yeah,
like the whole planet's 2%.
Basically, anyone anyone with any kind of European heritage,
if you're not Native American,
is descended from Charlemagne.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So,
I like the Breakfast Club.
Because the exponential nature of every generation, you add two more ancestors for every ancestor that there already is. It just exponentially expands to the point that like there weren't that many people alive on the planet ever. So like statistically you're related to and it doesn't take that long. Like I said, it's like almost anyone with any sort of European relation is descended from Charlemagne.
7 people ago.
7 people ago, exactly.
It's a little bit more.
So Dave, if you're about to go on a Thomas Paine journey, I don't want to stop that.
No. We're going on a Thomas Paine journey here.
Yeah.
Because even though I have to hop and go do bylaws, since Benner put me on that, Zach did.
I already have it, Nick. I already have it up.
Okay. Yeah.
It's what's coming next.
ChatGPT has questions about Thomas Paine that Dave needs to answer.
Yeah, Dave. We Zach sent some conspiracy theories involving Thomas Paine, and he wants you to confirm or debunk them.
Okay.
Let's see what we got. Paine was murdered by poisoning by his enemies because of his radical views and support for the French Revolution. True or false?
No, he died in 1809, although the Jacobins did try to have him executed during the French Revolution. He escaped that fate through a jailer's mistake.
Yeah.
Sorry,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Interesting.
Was it with the door thing and like
yeah,
the
you know
on
about
the
this.
side of the door? Yeah,
that's right. I'm impressed, Alden. Not many people know that story.
It's the kind of thing that I have ADHD, so like I'll forget like 9 things, but the thing that's like funny or interesting, like I'll remember forever. But
interesting. So wait, what's the door thing? What happened there?
I'll let him tell it better, I'm sure. But
yeah, so I'll do this succinctly. So Paine spent about 8 months in Luxembourg prison, jailed by the Jacobins, primarily for having tried to save the life of King Louis XVI. He actually pled for his life to be spared because he thought it would be set a good Republican example for France. So he was thrown in jail, spent 8 months there, nearly died, but he was set to be executed. And the day before his execution, his jail cell door, for whatever reason, was open. We don't fully know why, although there's supposition as to why among historians. The executioner the night before would go around to the cells and mark an X, a legible X on a side of the door. However, Paine's door was marked on the side that was not visible by kind of the hangman collector the next day. So Paine escaped and survived the critical few weeks that it took for James Monroe, the minister to France, to plead for his release on the basis of his American citizenship. So he very nearly died, and he probably should have. But that's not even the only thing. Paine escaped 6 other early deaths, all of which I cover in my book.
Goodness
So
gracious.
you don't think at the end one of these guys ended up finding him and slipping some poisoning?
I only knew about
no poisoning is known.
That's crazy. He's a
All right,
survivor.
what's the next?
And you said the Jacobins; those were the original lefties, right?
Yeah, they would kind of be, they were mostly influenced by the works of Jean-Jacques Rousseau. So you already know they're kind of proto-Marxists, but they were considered radicals. Paine was in some ways less radical than them because he really thought, the reign of terror was a complete nightmare, of course, and this had gotten far too out of control. Paine wanted kind of an American-style Republican system in France, not to revolutionize every aspect of society, though he certainly thought monarchy was evil, the connection to religion was evil, and things like that.
Interesting.
Okay.
Oh, by the way, Dave, you know Casey Sable, right?
Casey's one of my best friends. I love the track you're playing at the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
Casey's awesing. He's amazing.
Yeah, he's 2 floors above me right now, cutting some music together.
That's where you are. Okay, perfect. Great.
Yeah. He has your book on his table up there.
Yeah, Casey's great. I love that guy.
Yeah, he's the best. Next one. Paine was actually a British agent sent to infiltrate the American Revolution and sow discord among the rebels.
It wouldn't make sense because he was kind of the linchpin that got them to support independence, or at least brought that controversy down to the common man through common sense. Because, really before Common Sense, when it was released in early 1776, a lot of people were calling for reconciliation. Commoners didn't get too involved in this. It was mostly kind of an aristocratic struggle between people like, Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson and, the Brits. And a lot of people didn't know about this, but Paine used kind of very colloquial language to rouse the common person to really understand some of these things. And his arguments weren't coded in legalese or anything like that. So if that was true, he did a terrible job. And he honestly despised Britain. Being English himself, like he till his dying day, he actually wished that Napoleon would invade, do regime change and replace the government with a Republican one. So
wow, I didn't know
he would
that.
have been terrible. Yeah.
That's
terrible agent from Britain.
Is it true
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, is it true that someone like exhumed his remains and like had it sent to England against his will or whatever, like his dying will? Like,
yeah, Alden, it's really impressive how much you know about Paine. But yeah, a guy named William Cobbett dug up his bones posthumously, and he was a fanatical fan of Paine. one-time rival of him, but he grew to love Paine for whatever reason. He
Mhm.
wanted him to be buried back on his native soil, essentially kind of enshrine him in his honor. And
But
it's
did
not
they?
known where. No, they never
Yeah.
did. And it's not known where his bones are. There's several conflicting accounts amongst his ancestors about where they went. Some people have claimed to have the skull and stuff like that. We
So if
just
you don't know, we don't know. Because like I was like, that was one of the mysteries that I wanted to ask you about. I'm like, I have no idea. So if you don't
It's
know,
I wrote an epilogue just for that. It's a crazy, really weird story.
it really is.
If you're
Man.
watching this live, I'd like to welcome you to Alden and Dave's History Hour.
Alden knows a freakish amount about Paine. It's kind of scary. I'm gonna start asking Alden some questions.
I know like freakishly obscure items. Like I don't know.
All right. Number 3 is Paine was secretly a member of the Illuminati, a secret society that sought to overthrow governments and establish a new world order.
I mean, I don't see any evidence of this. He certainly wanted governments to be overthrown, specifically in Britain, but also in France too. But no Illuminati connection as far as I know, and that might post-date his life. I'm not sure.
Interesting.
I think the Bavarian Illuminati was what, 1776, was it not?
Okay.
Was it?
I'll take that from you. I don't know.
That was Adam Weishaupt during the Revolutionary War, because that was, some people think he switched places with Washington.
I'm pretty into like some weird Illuminati type stuff, and I've never heard a convincing argument that Thomas Paine was part of that, but
interesting.
That would be news to me.
Yeah, I mean, I'd never heard that either, but I'm not an expert like Alden.
Was he a Freemason at least?
I have no idea about that.
They all, was he? That's a.
I mean,
Was,
weren't
like,
a bunch of them
Scottish Rite
Freemasons?
level? Yeah.
Yeah, like
That I don't know.
Washington was, and was he, Dave?
I don't know. I mean, I can't comment on that.
Let's see. Paine faked his own death and continued to live in secret under a different identity.
He's still alive now, actually. Yeah.
Am I just
his name's T-Pain, and he found autotune.
Am I just a blue-pilled historian if I say no to all these, by the way?
No, you're probably sane.
They're all kind of crap. No, I mean, he died in New York City in 1809, and he had health problems from his time in French prison in the mid-1790s all the way to the end of his death. He almost died due to a stroke a few years before his death. He died a natural death, and many eyewitnesses to testify to that account. And which skeleton was dug up if not him? That would have been a nice trick, I guess.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I would even add to this too, to the whole like, Illuminati type thing or whatever. If you're set to be executed, I don't suspect you as one of them. You know what I mean? Like that just doesn't feel right. I think he's not a suspect for me. Like
Davis controlled opposition.
Yeah.
He's CIA planned.
Let's see. Final one. Paine's famous work, Common Sense, was actually written by someone else and attributed to Paine to further a political agenda.
Not true, though. A lot of people, it was written anonymously at first, and a lot of people thought that various other people wrote it. The two chief suspects other than Paine were Benjamin Franklin and John Adams. People thought those two men actually wrote this until Paine's name eventually got divulged a few months later. But it was so well circulated and well read, not only with commoners, but with, some of the leading Whig patriots like George Washington and Charles Lee. Charles Lee, a guy a lot of people don't know about, but he's a very prominent figure in his time too. But yeah, a lot of people thought it wasn't Paine, but it was Paine. So
interesting.
All right. And that's why you need to buy Dave's book.
Yes,
So do I.
buy the book. davidbenner.square.site. I can sign copies. I'll ship it to you immediately. Personalize it the way you want, though I won't write Nancy Pelosi rules or January 6th was an insurrection. I won't write either of those two things.
Let's see. I'm going to share that tab. Boom. There it is.
Nice.
All right.
There it is.
DaveBenner.square.site if you want to buy any of this stuff.
Yeah.
Dave, sadly, I've not. I don't have any of your books. That's unfortunate. I gotta get this one and start there.
Plenty of time after the show to go through your shopping cart. I'll help you along the way if you want.
Heck yeah, nice.
I'm honestly probably gonna get it and then send it to my dad for his birthday after this because he's like a history buff.
Well, great if you do. Thanks, man. You know plenty. You could recite this book. It sounds like to him, anyways.
Oh no, dude! I know like useless trivia about all things in life. You know what I mean? Like the things that don't matter. Like that's what I'll remember.
This is true. Alden's pretty useless outside of just random factoids.
Well, we made Thomas Jefferson ambassador to France when he suggested we use the metric system for our land measuring.
He did suggest that?
Yes, he did. Yeah, Thomas Jefferson devised the public land survey system that we use to map the western frontier. And it's all based in square miles, and you get 36 square miles. It's a whole township.
Yeah.
And he says, "Hey, we should do this in metric." And they're like, "How about you go to France for a while?"
Yeah, that's your punishment. That's back in the days of surveying where they were like throwing chains and stuff like to measure stuff or whatever.
That's right. 66-foot chain, pulled the 200 pounds of tension.
Get out of here, but have a good rest of the.
Thanks for joining, Nick. Have fun.
Cheers,
on
sir.
Nerd
Have
time.
fun with bylaws, yeah.
Our fallen comrade now.
Oh yeah, I forgot to ask. What's everybody drinking tonight?
I have a weird mix of a screwdriver and a beer.
Okay,
root beer.
I have an assortment of IPAs.
Oh yeah, what do you got?
Got a rye IPA. I've got a double IPA. Let's see, Alpine Duet.
Oh my
Nice.
gosh,
Good stuff.
Stephen, I just saw a study that came out that says basically if you have a deep love for bitter drinks like IPAs, you're far more prone to violence.
I drink a lot of IPAs, so that's
just ask my first wife. She could not make a sandwich to save her life.
Hey, Mac is drinking the correct
but
drink.
It's proven she fell down the stairs. That's all that happened.
right. That was a joke, by the way.
I know.
That Netflix series, The Staircase, that comes to mind.
Oh, I haven't seen
Staircase?
this.
Which one's that one?
It's about a guy that was charged with murdering his wife, and he said she fell down a staircase.
Yeah, and then his second wife also did, and no, I'm kidding.
Who's that chick in Tiger King? 'Cause it sounds like her.
Carol
Baskin.
Carol Baskin.
Yeah.
She had 3 husbands that just disappeared or whatever.
Wait, didn't they confirm that the husband is actually still living recently?
I did see something about that. I haven't checked the sources on it, but I saw that he was found in South America.
So was her lawsuit just so she could get life insurance?
Who knows, man? That woman is crazy.
I mean, some of those are big payouts. You don't pay taxes on that stuff.
Yeah, that's fair. Let's see. Have y'all been watching any of these hearings with Matt Taibbi and those guys?
I've seen a little bit of more him in
clips.
podcasts, but not hearings. No.
Yeah, I've watched a few of the clips. I tried to tune in for some of it. It is here. I'm going to play a clip, but man, it's just an abomination that
Is anyone actually surprised by this information though? Is this about the Twitter files and all that?
Yeah, but it's unreal how actual journalists get treated in public. It's bananas. Here's Taibbi trying not to laugh.
No, the only rights that have been taken away are the right to be wrong. And the crowd laughed, but he was making an important point, which is that in a free country, you can't have freedom without the freedom to be wrong.
Let's move on to a couple of other tweets, not from somebody with 32 million followers. This one says, Elon now controls Twitter. Unleash the racial slurs, K-word, and N-word. The other one says, I can freely express how much I hate N-words now. Thank you, Elon. See, these tweets were taken down.
I've never heard K-word. That's a new one for me.
They should have been, because they're
Is
hate
that-
speech.
Yeah, what is the K word?
And they lead.
Well, I know what it is, but I've never heard it say K word.
In fact, in the 12
I know what it
hours
is, yeah.
after Elon Musk's acquisition of Twitter, hate speech of all kinds spiked on Twitter, including a 500% increase in the use of the N-word. And it's not just online. From 2020 to 2021.
Cool story, bro. Have you seen Chris Rock's new special on Netflix?
Major cities. So hate speech online has real impacts in life. And so does election misinformation and propaganda online.
I mean, did you he just said that because hate speech was allowed online, that it affected the amount of hate crimes in real life. And he made this correlation of things that didn't happen at the same time, that had nothing to do with each other, but he decided to equate them and say it was causation, and they literally have nothing to do with each other.
And Mr. Taibbi, I've read a lot of your work, respect some of it.
Causation and correlation.
It casts a lot of doubt.
Huge problem.
On Russian interference in our elections. And today, you have virtually alleged a vast government conspiracy to censor speech. But I can tell you that the threat to our democracy, I'm not asking you a question. I'll let you know what I do. I can tell you that the threat to our democracy is very real.
Matt's trying to laugh at him. Did you see that?
Yes.
Yeah, that makes my.
It's like you're proving me right with everything you're telling me right now. Your whole story,
man,
is proving me right.
Yes, and that happened so many times. Like I watched one with, I forgot who it was. He was there with Taibbi, and like they were literally trying not to
Schellenberger.
laugh. Schellenberger, yeah. Gosh,
they both are trying so hard not to laugh. Yeah.
Yeah, the freaking lady grilling him said, so this was a threesome with you, Taibbi, and Elon Musk. And like, what are you talking about?
Like, does this person really not know what that means? You know what I mean? That's even, I don't know.
She kept trying to get them to give away their sources, and they kept repeating like a broken record, that they weren't going to give up their sources, and it was sources within Twitter. And it was just, it got so monotonous. It was crazy.
Yeah. That's why I tend not to watch like the hearing type things, because it just makes my pulse go up, and it's just a lot of redundant nonsense or whatever. And I don't know.
It is, but it also like gives you a like really clear glimpse of who is in charge of making the rules for us.
That's fair.
When they can't like decipher what reality is. If I have to like, the phrase "threat to our democracy" is maybe the stupidest, most vague phrase.
Well, and it's
that people have used for the last 2 years.
It's been used by everybody. So like, yeah, it starts to unfortunately lose its meaning, which is its own problem. But
yeah, I mean,
Even if I was a fan of democracy, I'd say, well, the oligarchs at the Federal Reserve sure seem to be doing a good job of suppressing it. Yeah, even if I was a fan, which I'm not.
And then you see Chuck Schumer. He's saying. Oh crap! Who did he come out recently and say it was a threat to democracy and had to be stopped at all costs or something like that? He has to be shut up.
It's whoever. It's the target.
Probably Tucker Carlson.
It's Tucker. That's right. Yeah. So Charles Schumer came out and said that about Tucker Carlson, and it just reminded me of the first session where Nancy Pelosi was Speaker of the House. It was her first order as Speaker, or among that first week, whatever, that she passed a resolution condemning Rush Limbaugh as a bad person. And then sent that to Cumulus Media, who she thought was his boss. When he uploaded it through the telephone line or something like that. That's how he got around, all the syndication fees or something. And so they sent it to Cumulus, and the president of Cumulus hand delivered it to him, laughing, and was like, "Congress thinks you're my employee.
What's Cumulus?
And you're a bad person." And so he got this official resolution. All these U.S. reps signed it, and he auctioned it off and put some Marines kids through college or something. Because it was the first time in U.S. history they've actually passed a resolution saying anything about a private citizen, much less condemning one.
Right.
And I got my problems with the guy, but that was a gangster move of okay, cool.
I do too, as a personal thing. But again, that's a personal thing. Like it doesn't have any place here with this. What is Cumulus though? I don't know what that is.
It's a big media corporation in the country. They own a whole lot of radio stations.
One of the ones where like
Just radio though.
most people don't know the name, but it owns like 100 stations or something. Yeah.
That's them.
Yeah.
I mean, all this stuff with Tucker this past week of him releasing unedited video and them and everybody freaking out and saying that this is a threat to democracy and that he's what did the idiots on The View say? They're saying that this is promoting recruiting domestic terrorists to join Tucker.
Interesting.
They're 100 times more upset about this footage than the inflation crisis, sending over $100 billion over to Ukraine,
Right.
The COVID regime and the ramifications of that, the vaccine mandates, the Pfizer revelations, the Wuhan lab admissions, all of that. They're
Isn't that
way less
convenient
concerned
too?
about.
You know what I mean? Like more upset about something that doesn't affect your life than 8 things that do affect your life, you know? But
I mean, what's her face? Karine, whatever the stupid White House secretary is. She said that, and a whole bunch of other people have said that January 6th was worse than 9/11. Worse than 9/11. Like a worse attack on our democracy than 9/11 was.
wow.
How do
Marsh
you get
tweeted
there?
that too.
Well, there's a whole lot of
Erica
people still
Marsh did
alive
tweet that,
that saw Reagan get shot, in broad daylight, and you're going to say, "Oh, this is a big threat to our democracy." That some people went on an unguided tour.
I wonder how many events we could come up with that we would rank above January 6th as far as a threat to
9/11 might be really high on that list.
I'd say like
Yeah.
Pearl Harbor, 9/11, any shooting of a president, like these would all qualify as much bigger deals than what happened on January 6th, where one civilian got killed and one cop died a few days later due to a stroke.
The way that
the Dollar General around the corner being out of cat litter 2 weeks ago was a bigger threat to my democracy than J6.
the way that I see most of these events is that it's either possible or probable that there's some form of like a false flag thing going on with them anyway, and that we're looking at the wrong, you know what I mean? We're getting whipped up about this in the wrong way anyway. So the real threat to democracy is how we're all seeing these events in general. For me, that's just kind of how I look at these things. Or whatever.
Well, yeah. Well, and that's why the article we posted to start the show, it's all about the response, the public health response or the emergency response.
Right.
Okay. Well, the response is the issue right now.
Right.
And the portrayal.
But we're being programmed to like, oh well, they have to respond to this crisis. This is a crisis.
Even if you bought into the whole insurrection narrative, Dave Smith brought up a really good point too. He said, well, even if you buy into that, why wouldn't you be alarmed or concerned about the fact that all these security guards are just leading these insurrectionists through the halls and not trying to kind of push them back? And even AOC in the first days after this, even she expressed some concern that the security seemed to be too lax.
She did.
Wow,
yeah, she tweeted that. I remember her saying that, and she put it like she was in a video talking about that, talking about her harrowing experience. But she did raise a couple good points.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. I tried to show some of the footage. This is like a year ago or something, where it wasn't the recent stuff with the what are they calling this guy, the shaman guy or whatever, which I hate.
Oh yeah, the Q shaman.
Yeah, I hate that they use the word shaman for this guy. That's super stupid, but I mean that's just ridiculous in its own right.
Well, he's using the Q frequencies to heal your body.
Yeah, come on. Yeah, it's super rude. But anyway,
he's got crystals that start with a Q.
Yeah, But I tried to show footage of this to my dad before, and the one sentence background on this is that's where I grew up, and it was my dad is pretty classical liberal, but has been. I kind of grew up under the classical liberal umbrella of the freedom of speech kind of priorities or whatever, and I feel like I held on to those, and I've just shifted with as politics have shifted, but my dad is still stuck on the Democrat Party thing, which whole conversation for another day in terms of that phenomenon. But I tried to show him just some stuff of the footage of the cops just leading people, opening doors and stuff like that. Yeah. And he had, some cockamamie reason why that was going on or whatever, or oh, they were scared for their lives, or oh, they were whatever it was. And I'm what? It's just, man, I don't know.
Unarmed shaman.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah,
So I gave up trying to reach people. I don't know.
It's really difficult. Like people will literally just bury their heads in the sand. Like if
Yeah.
they even for a second think that you might not think it was an insurrection, they're just going to dismiss anything you say. It doesn't matter what kind of evidence you present to them. It's over.
And is this just because that's like what their media told them and presented it as?
Yeah. It's also makes it like when you dig your heels into a story, to a narrative, and you are like on a team where you're all doing that, and you're all being like, this is what happened because this is what the entire team says happened.
Yeah.
The like cognitive dissonance that you have to buck that might break a lot of people. Like that's a really difficult thing to do, to admit you've been wrong and everyone you know and love is also wrong. Like that's hard. That's really hard.
It's the hardest work anyone will ever do is to face that super dissonant level of like, I was wrong kind of a thing. But I think there's some people that are more prone to do that in increments. And like, if you are used to that a little bit, you're kind of more comfortable with it. And some people are more
how many people are bankrupt in this country because, hey, when that Nigerian prince gets free, he's going to come over here and see me and give me a part of his fortune. Or it's the Oakleys or whatever, whatever that email scam is, that gets thousands of people annually.
Yeah.
And that's scary to think about. That just because
the same one is still getting people.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Did you watch, did you ever watch, what's it called? It's Mariana Van Zeller is a documentary like filmmaker, and she did Trafficked. She does a show called Trafficked. I think it's done 2 seasons now. She goes into some pretty terrifying places, like
about human trafficking,
all sorts of trafficking, everything. So like she did one on like cocaine and went to the source where they harvested the cocaine and followed the same piece the entire way till it was sold in the United States.
Did they see American soldiers guarding the fields sometimes? Like that's been a thing before.
It's a good question. It's been a year or so since I saw it.
I've had some beers with some special forces guys that were saying in Afghanistan that's what their job was
that's
to.
What I was going to say.
They were like, I was guarding poppy fields. I wasn't training anybody. I wasn't building wells. I wasn't building septic systems.
Nope.
I wasn't teaching them agriculture. I was guarding their poppy fields
for the CIA to smuggle back into the United States via the cartels or whatever. Like, it's ridiculous.
Well, where I was going with that,
sorry,
all rudely went on a tangent, is that she did one on scam callers and how they literally have been doing the same scam for 30 years, and they rake in.
And they don't even have to change it. Like,
dude, it's an obscene amount of money.
Wow.
Like, you should go watch just that episode, and you'll be like, I got to be a scam caller. This is insane. Like, I'll make way more money doing this. Like,
Trafficked, right? Is that what you?
Yeah, Trafficked with Mariana Van Zeller.
I always have like
such
a
good show
for this show.
Yeah, no, it's a great show.
I like shows like that too. That's Netflix did one on. It was a whole series of things that are tied to illegal activity. It was like the olive oil in Italy. The mafia is actually doing that now, because it's legit. Like, why would you sell illegal drugs when you can just step on olive oil and sell it legit and make more money?
Yeah,
and so they're doing that. And then avocados, apparently, folks get kidnapped over avocado farms, and I had no idea.
Whatever's
Avocados
hot,
are crazy,
man.
man. Yeah, no, avocados for real. Like, they're hard to grow too, which is frustrating. You have to destroy, like, to make a big old grove of avocado trees, you got to destroy so much stuff.
They don't make fruit for
obliterate
years.
everything. Yeah.
It takes a while.
Dave, I wanted to ask you, like, so you said earlier you mentioned that Thomas Paine was able to like communicate to the common people and kind of put it in their language, like what the whole, like what everything was about, and like to get them galvanized. Would you say, like, is there somebody that you could think of that like could be that person for like citizens who are not like full blown left and right, but like that, that middle, like 60%, and be able to convince them that this is what we should be doing, is fighting for individual liberty. Like, is there somebody like that in today's society?
Oh. Well, it's so hard for me to kind of draw a parallel between Paine and that, because when Paine wrote Common Sense, he was virtually unknown to almost everyone in the whole country. He was the editor of kind of the leading radical magazine in Philadelphia, but the common person had no idea who Paine was. So if I was to kind of say someone, I don't know that I could do a good job, but those of prominence, I mean, I think maybe Edward Snowden has a lot of parallels to Paine. They were both whistleblowers. I write about how Paine was essentially the first American whistleblower, because he basically blew the door off what was called the Dean affair. So there had been some war profiteering in France by a ambassador named Silas Dean. He had essentially been skimming off the top of a front operation to kind of launder money and arms to the American patriots before there was an official treaty with France. And he had engaged in some wrongdoing in his mercantile profession while serving that role. Paine found out about it, blew the door off this, publicized this, and it led to him losing his job as the secretary of the Committee on Foreign Affairs. So like Snowden, he was willing to express the truth regardless.
At his own expense.
Yeah, at his own expense many times. He could have been executed. He almost was for publishing The Rights of Man Part 2, because Britain sentenced him to seditious libel for that book and tried him in absentia, and he would have received a death sentence had he ever returned to England. So I would say Snowden. That's my long way of saying it, but it's hard to say because Paine was so unknown when he wrote that.
Interesting.
I think Snowden.
I like Snowden too. I think he can be a little too cerebral and a little too talky, but yeah,
that's his thing though. I mean, like, everyone's got some people are more charismatic, and like if he weren't who he is, if he weren't as cerebral as he was, he might not have been in the position to do it and to see what was going on. And so
that's true. I think he gets a little lost in the weeds sometimes when he's talking. And
sure, but like look at who he is, and like he's been put in the spotlight. He didn't like ask for that kind of, you know what I mean? Like he's fair. Not a politician or whatever. And so, like,
I had to move to Russia with 12 minutes notice.
Yeah,
that'll do something to you after a couple of years, you know.
But Malice is my other answer, if I have to say.
Oh, Malice.
He's a populist.
He's the guy who was talking about Texit earlier with Rogan.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Gotcha. That's cool.
Yeah. Michael Malice. That dude's one of my favorites. He's so, he's just freaking brilliant. Like,
he's got a great name.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to express some ignorance here, but so was Thomas Paine tied to the Federalist Papers in any way?
No, Paine's opinions on the Constitution were mixed, but he wasn't in the United States when the ratification struggle was happening. The Federalist was written by John J. Alexander Hamilton and James Madison.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
The Federalist essays. I think there's 85 total.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever been to Hamilton Broadway musical?
No, but I've listened to the entire soundtrack, and I'm a little critical of some parts of it, but I hear some people say that, take the politics out of it. The reverence for Hamilton, who was a total shill and total huckster for the bankers. Take all that out of it, and it's actually a good play. I trust them. But
I would agree with that. Like, it was hard for me to get past the fact that he wanted the Federal Reserve, like, right off the bat.
He wanted the Federal Reserve.
I just don't like this play at all. But overall, it was a good play.
I thought it was a little suspicious just of like who they chose to kind of make a whole, cultural, thing out of. But
yeah, what's his face?
Miranda?
Lin-Manuel Miranda. Yeah. Like, he doesn't know what he's doing. He's a super lefty, man. Like, he has no idea what the frick is going on.
Well, it's based off Chernow's biography, and Chernow's biography is a very laudatory pro-federalist account of Hamilton that really. So I think they do mention like the Reynolds affair and stuff in the play, but it's such a small piece of it, and that totally ruined Hamilton's political career. So I don't know. It really glosses over, I think, some of the negative things about him, not only politically but personally.
Interesting.
I just can't do musicals either. So like I just can't. I think there's one musical on Earth, and I don't even know if it counts as a musical, but like The Nightmare Before Christmas. Like, is that a musical? I don't even know. Like, that's the only one I like.
Oh, that's totally musical.
That's what I thought. Okay, so
I hate that animation style, so I don't.
You don't like the stop motion?
No. Well, I don't like Tim Burton in general. So
I mean,
yeah.
I haven't in a long time, but I liked that one or whatever. But that's it. I can't get. So I haven't even watched the whole thing because I'm like, I don't even like the art of it, you know. But
yeah, yeah, some of them are pretty good. There's one that my favorite that I've seen, because you know my wife was a musical theater actress, and now she acts in movies and does stunts and stuff like that. But whenever we go to
That's cool.
she's a big stunt woman, and
that's badass.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
She's an animal. Yeah, we'd go to New York to see her friends, and we'd go to the plays and stuff. And there's one called "Come From Away" about this little town in like middle of nowhere, Canada, on 9/11, where they had to accept a whole bunch of planes that were grounded, and they are in no way like ready for that, because it's this tiny, tiny little town, and so they're like hosting like 600 people. And
the most people that have been in the town.
Yeah, it's like 20 times the size of the town. Like, and yeah, it's really good musical. Like, and it's a great soundtrack. So that's my issue with going to plays is I just feel like someone's gonna mess up at some point. So I'm just sitting there sweating, just praying that no one like falls flat on their face or
like for the like
sings the wrong thing. Yes, it literally makes me sweat and like get real tense. I hate it. I hate it.
That's funny.
Yeah, plays are not my thing. Stand-up comedy, I don't like going because I'm like, oh, he's gonna mess up, or like
I
improv.
got called on in the stage one time because I sat too close to the front, and that made me uncomfortable. But
oh yeah, no, absolutely not.
Did you see Chris Rock's latest special?
I've seen clips because he goes off on Will Smith.
It's a live stream.
I'll bet. Yeah, is it?
He live streamed it
from like his home or
wow.
something.
And he messed up a joke, and he even said in the middle of his set, "Oh shit, I messed up that joke."
Interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
I've been curious what his like personal take is on that whole event or whatever. But
I mean, the comedy on it is hysterical. Like he did great with it. He's like, yeah. In one part, he basically says like, I used to love Will Smith, but now I watched Emancipation just to see him get his ass whooped.
That's funny.
I thought was such a great line. But yeah, I mean, he goes off on that whole situation.
Oh yeah, but that I thought that was kind of a interesting concept of live streaming the Tate special.
Yeah, yeah, that is interesting.
You know, because most of them will do, they'll borrow from 3 different nights or 2 different cities, and you'll see kind of a little bit of splicing here and there. The whole continuous live stream.
Wow, that is impressive. Because most of them do like 2 shows, and then they combine the recordings to make it perfect.
Yeah,
interesting. That's bold. I mean, that's why he's one of the best ever, I guess. Y'all, there's been some crazy crap happening in Atlanta. Don't know how many people are aware of the whole Cop City thing, but this is like a coordinated attack by Antifa on Cop City in Atlanta. You can see all these folks coming in using whatever. I don't know. I guess this is a drone, maybe camera. I don't know how they're doing this, but it's very still drone. Oh no, I think it's a drone. And then let's see. Let me get to some of the fun stuff.
This is the Cop City site.
So they set a whole bunch of shit on fire.
Like a trailer for construction crew about to be up in flames.
Yeah.
Smoke bombs. Cops just seem to watch.
So here I've got two emotions running right now. One of them is like, all right, the commies are trying to destroy the town, take them out. But there's also this other feeling of the narrative that's coming out of the government that even though obviously folks throwing Molotov cocktails at you, you got to fight back. You got to do something. You know, they're burning the town down. People can't go to work. All that kind of stuff. But the narrative that's coming out of the government right now is that we're being set up to where the response is going to be worse than the offense.
Yep.
Because
escalation of it,
because it's the way they're saying certain things when they do these press conferences afterward that it's like, you could just change a few words and now all of a sudden you're coming at me for not doing any of that.
Right.
Yes. Well, this was okay. So I talked about this. I did a monologue on the Free Georgia podcast a few weeks ago about Cop City and like what that's going to mean for the rest of the country and for especially people in Georgia. But like, if you go through, I watched a ton of footage of this. That the cops are so underprepared, or maybe planned to be underprepared, and let this happen.
I was going to address that particular.
It reminded me
but...
so much of January 6th.
Yeah, okay.
And like now they're using that, and so like my whole take on it on the Free Georgia podcast was that like this domestic terrorist label is going to start getting thrown around like crazy. And they're going to be able to hold you without bail, without charges, and just call you a domestic terrorist.
So
because there are different rules for terrorism.
And there's some bills going through in Georgia right now, involving mental health care in general, and the way they're doing certain things. It could be, I'm not saying it is, but certainly what we're watching here with these commies could be the precursor to red flag laws.
Yep.
And they're coming at it from two angles simultaneously.
Yeah,
sorry to cut you off, Alden.
No, it's fine.
Go for it, Alden.
It's setting up that precedent. This comes back to several things we've been talking about, which is like the action, the reaction, and media portrayal, which then presents the precedent for the reaction. And then if you define certain terms in a certain way, like if you get branded as a domestic terrorist, the then, national level response like that you can get, and then the backing by the people that you'll get for a certain response on an extreme level to something. And I was going to ask you guys just how you personally feel about how this has gone down just at various points in the past. And I could get into this we would need a whole show for this or whatever. But are you ex-cop, Stephen? Is that what or current or?
No. I'm the black sheep of the family.
Oh, okay. I thought you had said something in the past. I was going to talk to you about this. I was going to be like,
it's in my family going back a long time.
Okay, well then fair still, but that there's been a lot of instances of like whether it's on the Metro cop level or like on the federal like FBI involvement level with riots and things like that in particular, and like I don't know how much of it is organic, where they're just like put a pile of bricks and see what happens kind of thing, or how much of it is, instigated more intentionally to get things to escalate to a certain point. But just following, like just mapping this out and the progression of things and just following and watching what does the media say about it? What are the possible responses? And then looking in the future where it could go. I just tend to kind of think like, how could this be used and fanned and used to a certain agenda? And I just rarely trust anything. It's just like my default mode or whatever.
Yeah, well, I would just say, interact with these folks. I know, I'm blessed enough to live in a town that all the surrounding towns as well. The police chiefs, the sheriffs, they put this on their social media pages. Once a month, they have a coffee with a cop, breakfast with a cop, whatever. Come meet me at this place.
I would do that.
Open Q&A for the whole public. Love to hang out. Go hang out with them. Get to know them. And they can tell you what's on their mind, and you can tell them what's on their mind because, chances are we've got a few Thomas Paines as sheriffs. They're willing to tell the truth when it causes them personal harm.
For every one that is, though, I think there's one that's been.
Well, absolutely. But the ones that are still there, they deserve to meet people up like us, free thinkers, freedom lovers that know we got their back.
I agree with that for sure.
Like, hey, if you act right, like I'm going to support you. But, if you're out here beating us up, arresting us for no reason, now we have problems.
We would sniff them out fast. And honestly, being the one to offer to have breakfast or whatever with someone is already a good sign. Like that's already
It's true.
What would Thomas Paine think about what's going on now? Because like I wasn't there then, but like Revolutionary War, people probably were pretty divided at that time on like whether to do it or not to do it, like rock the boat or don't or whatever. And I wonder like what he would think about what's going on today.
Well, one of his biggest issues was standing armies. He thought that when government had a monopoly on certain types of weapons, certain types of force, occupations, it was a net negative for liberty. I mean, that was a shared opinion amongst all the radical Whigs at the time, and it's hard to say that we don't have a standing army that subjugates us every day in this country in some way. So I would say that, but yeah, I mean, he was a red-pilled guy at the time. He just didn't think any connection to England was feasible, even though at the time, just a few years prior to Common Sense, pro-British sentiment among Americans was at its highest point after the French and Indian War. Pro-British patriotism was off the charts in this country, so it really took a lot to whittle away at the confidence that many Americans had toward the British, and a lot of it just happened to be based on their responses to some of these incidents. Like it wasn't the Tea Party itself, it wasn't the the taxes itself, it was how the British enforced it. And the iron-handed tactics they tried to use to dissolve their governments, send in the troops, things like that really divided people. And Paine pointed all those things out. So did Jefferson.
Yeah. That's interesting, the perspective on that in terms of like the sentiment of the people at the time a little bit too. And that like everyone through recent events and how that had gone, like there was a lot of actual support for it. And so trying to get people to see things despite those, that's interesting.
And a third of the country was hardliner Tories that said all of those people were extremists and conspiracy theorists. They're idiots. They don't know the good that they have in this country. There's so many parallels till today. There's Tories in every age.
Well, now look at today. You got Australia, which was Britain's debtor's prison. They have it's home of the Perth Mint, the only mint in the world that produces silver bullion, gold bullion, precious metals, whatever. It's the only mint in the world with a government-backed guarantee. Their quality is unimpeachable. And now they're in the middle of the biggest gold scandal with China's Shanghai Gold Exchange because they were, diluting their gold bullion. Like they're about to have a 100-ton gold recall.
Were you who brought this up in the chat earlier? That's crazy.
I mean, just the irony of that. Like, hey, Britain's debtor's prison is committing money crimes.
Yeah. When you put it that way, like that's pretty funny.
Didn't Mises Caucus post something about, was it New Zealand or Australia's like new police force recruiting video? Did y'all see that?
No.
Oh shit. Okay. Well, y'all keep chatting. Let me pull it up.
Okay.
Was it some time ago? It strikes a memory.
I think Mises posted it today.
Okay, I don't know that I've seen it.
Let's see.
So yeah, I mean the British tactics during Thomas Paine's day. I mean impressment. They just catch you on the beach. Hey, you in the Navy now, son? Get on the boat.
There is nothing worse than being in the Royal Navy for whatever reason, and it led to the War of 1812. By the way,
really.
That's why the Federalist Congress under Madison declared, that's the primary reason they declared war against Britain was impressment. Britain had been seizing American ships and, placing them into indentured servitude under the British Royal Navy.
Wow.
Must have been horrible.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Jeez. Here's the video for the Australian Army recruitment. This is population protection training. Definitely not population assault training.
A lot of protecting and serving going on here.
Yeah.
See, that dog is there to distribute freedom. I don't want the shot. Let me out.
just feels like a lot. Yeah, I don't know about that.
I mean, like, the only time any of those tactics would be used is on your own citizens.
So, you know, at least one thing the U.S. Army got right was like, hey, something's got to blow up. Something's got to be loud and fly overhead. There's got to be heavy metal.
And it's got to be in another country.
Well,
this is an Army recruitment video.
But let's say the CCP did that to some protesters and see how the mainstream media would spin that against the Chinese just in the interest of starting another proxy war. You know, it's just it's just so transparent what they do.
And this is coming from Australia, which is like one of the biggest red flag states for me in terms of like how they handled like the COVID lockdown nonsense or whatever, which is very on your own people, you know, inwardly facing. I don't know.
They had one of the worst, right? Yeah. It wasn't Australia, just one of the worst.
As far as I saw, it was really like in the countries that we would think of as like, you know, free. Yeah, right. In quotes or whatever. Like it was a police state as far as I saw. It was bad.
Well, I bought some software last year from a guy in Melbourne, and he was like, I haven't left my house in 13 months.
Yeah.
He's like, I've got all the shots. I've got all the boosters.
Yep.
I'm fine. I don't have a fever. No one in my family has a fever. We cannot leave our yard.
Yeah.
Yep. Just think about how many crates of Fosters they all had to buy.
You start buying kegs at that point. Like, yeah.
Well, then who's delivering it too?
I mean, I feel like that's still torture though. Like kegs of Fosters. Come on.
It's pretty bad.
It's still a lockdown at that point.
That's not a party.
There's one of the big bars around Atlanta that's known for having a lot of taps, and you get the membership, and you get all these little levels. Once you get up to one of the main benchmark levels, the tradition is you shotgun a Foster's oil can, so the 24-ounce Fosters
as punishment, like where it's like hazing.
Yeah, I mean, and I did that years ago, and I mean, it was straight for the trash can. Shoving servers out of the way. They're trying to ring up orders.
That's a lot of volume to shotgun. Yeah.
I had no idea that Australia was where Mad Max was spawned. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's where it's supposed to have been set originally, right? Like, I don't know if it was filmed there, but I know that was where the story was supposed to have been set. But
I never,
unless I had that
paid attention to it. So I only watched the latest one with Tom Hardy. That's the only one I've ever paid attention to.
That was actually pretty good.
Oh, it was great. I loved it.
As far
Tom
as
Hardy's an animal.
revitalizing franchises, it wasn't bad.
Yeah,
everything.
Tom Hardy's great too.
He is a great actor, man.
Yeah, he's honestly.
Looper,
did you see that movie?
Freaking Batman.
Did you see what was that movie where the whole movie is him in the car?
Lock.
Wait, what? Is that what it's called?
Locke. Locke. His last name is Locke. His last name is Locke.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a movie where the camera's just on him in the car driving the whole time, and his wife
that's
is
the one.
like pregnant and all that, and it was crazy good. As far as acting goes, like to make that an interesting movie is like that's really
you literally
impressive.
never leave the car for an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah, the whole film is just right there in the cab. Like anyway, I thought it was a really good sign about acting, like good acting.
I feel like he's. I've seen a bunch of interviews with him, and he seems like he's got a lot of pretty libertarian values, like just leave everybody alone, and
that'd be
stop
nice.
telling people what to do. Is basically like just give me some privacy.
Yeah,
he tends to be that kind of person. So I respect
Bane
that.
was an anarchist, so
Yeah,
yeah,
they have rubbed up on him.
Yeah,
hopefully only the good parts of Bane.
I hear Bane liked
the
IPAs.
good parts of Bane. I want only the best qualities of Batman villains, please. Yeah,
and no survivors.
Nice, that was pretty good.
That's not bad. Yeah.
Let's see. Love post-apocalyptic until we started upon said path in real life.
There's a theory about that. Like, I don't know how much you guys are like keen on like CIA like pre-programming through Hollywood and yada
very
yada.
keen.
Okay,
Yes,
yeah.
let's go.
A theory that a lot of this has been seeded more and more so that we as a culture are like more geared toward the idea of like these being possible. And then fanning the flames of, I noticed like a theme in a lot of movies is like that, like me and my family versus the world. And there's no movie where it's like zombie apocalypse and it's like, let's talk to our community and like get together. It's always like, fuck the world, you know, like, I don't know.
Mitchell's versus the Machines. I got to counter you on that one.
All right. I'm going to write that down.
It's an animated movie.
Interesting.
Cool. But
Yeah.
largely
Beast
not
last
the
week.
theme, like,
The family unit comes together in an apocalyptic situation and pulls through, and everything's all unicorns and rainbows at the end.
okay, all right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That leads me to another, since we've got Dave here, another like Thomas Paine related kind of a concept or whatever. But in being able to like speak to the layman, you know, like it seemed like he was trying to like direct his message like to the people, and like he was never right like an elected official of any kind.
He
Or
technically was. He served as a provisional representative in the French Revolutionary government, serving the region of Calais, even though he didn't speak a lick of French. But in America, he never was. He was a total celebrity. The Rights of Man propelled him to the stardom that, you know, he sold more copies of his book than like J.K. Rowling sold of her book today per capita. So, you know, it's just, but no, he wasn't an elected official. And, you know, he was a terrible politician when he was in the provisional government. He made a lot of missteps, and it just wasn't his thing. He was an educator. He was a propagandist. He was a messenger. But you're right. He spoke to the common people, but it wasn't just in what he said. It was how he said it, because he used what was called a vulgarity, a style of vulgarity, not being profane, just using speech that like the common relation I usually use is to say like how construction workers would talk today, just very colloquial, you know, underhanded humor, stuff like that they could connect with.
Relatable, cut through the BS.
Very relatable.
Yeah.
Anti-elitist.
Yes, and that's the whole thing is like instead of like playing into the machine by being a cog in the machine and kind of targeting all of your, you know, like directing all of your attention and thought toward like the upper echelon of the said machine, being more like, let me talk to the people and let me have a cultural impact that might actually have a longer and more impactful sort of, you know, movement here, like across centuries, than if I were to go straight to the top and like work on the foundation of the house instead.
That is the main idea of my book, that no politician in his time had as much of an impact as Paine, and even some of his most fierce political adversaries admitted it. John Adams is a guy that did not like Thomas Paine very much, and he begrudgingly once wrote, no man has had more influence on his time than Paine. Call it then the age of Paine, he said.
The age of Paine?
He didn't like him.
Wow.
So
that says a lot.
Interesting.
He made a cultural impact. I mean, and we can do it today. So people talk about, you know, elections and politics being the only route to sow the seeds of liberty. Well, I think it's messaging and education and cultural impact too. So
Absolutely. And that reminds me of a part of one of Rudyard Kipling's poems. If you can walk with kings and never lose the common touch. You know, you're saying Thomas Paine delivered his stuff with a certain degree of vulgarity that was still, appropriate but relatable. I don't know. It's just one of those things that I got that poem on my son's wall. I read it to him all the time. And if you go through that whole one, that Rudyard Kipling's if this then that, if you can keep your head when all those about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, and then at the end, then you'll be a man.
Interesting.
I like that. Yeah. What made you choose like Thomas Paine to write a book about?
Two big reasons. The first being that I don't think anything of very great substance has been written on him in decades, and I've read pretty much all of the prominent Paine biographies I had to do this book. So I think that everyone has its downsides. I think the other great biography of him was written by a guy named John Kane, but even that has some things that I don't think are covered perfect, glosses over some things, etc. And number two, because of how different he was than many of his contemporary fellow revolutionaries, like Jefferson, Madison, Patrick Henry, These very rich people that had aristocratic influence. But here, Paine the Commoner from England, no less, he's the banner waver of American independence. His life is such an enigma in so many ways, and I just found him so interesting. And there's things I don't like about Paine, by the way. This is not a totally laudatory account, but the chief point is that look around you. We live in the product of his most radical ideas, for better or worse. The welfare state is one of those things.
Is that part of for you? Is that part of the things that you agree less with, the welfare state?
Yeah, I mean, Paine kind of pitched a proto-welfare state in several ways for the first time in really Western civilization. It fell on deaf ears and didn't catch on, but he proposed an income tax, aid for poor and elderly, some public works projects, and even a proto-UBI scheme that was to be funded upon a land assessment tax. And Andrew Yang despise him, but he was right when he said, some of his ideas have their root in Paine. Paine wrote an agrarian justice about that. So
that's an interesting comparison.
No.
Yeah, with the universal basic income thing, and that's funny. Yeah. Those particular things.
I have to defend him in 20 seconds too, is that he was writing this in a time where he didn't expect it to be funded with mad fiat money printing experiments or to plunge a country's treasury into debt to facilitate it. So with 200 years of hindsight, who knows, maybe Paine would have the knowledge to look back and see how much of a disaster this has become.
And that goes two ways too, which is if you had a different system adopt similar, theology, could you actually implement it better, if it weren't to, cause as much of a handicap to the system kind of a thing or something. But
I love that you wrote a book about a guy who you don't agree with on some pretty major things, because I don't think
religion's the other thing.
I don't think that a Democrat or a Republican would write a book about somebody, and not only somebody who they don't agree with, but that they would never, even if the person didn't agree with them on some stuff, they would never address it. And the fact that you're openly saying he promoted all this stuff, but I agree with this stuff. That's pretty awesome. And I think that's that's needed. It's more nuanced. It's that's what's needed in today's society.
The nuance of it and the sort of just the unbiasedness of it is to present something just as it is, and people are in the gray. We almost all find ourselves, what person can you just I don't agree with me a week ago 100%, you know what I mean? And that's, I don't know.
I was a devout neocon. It's embarrassing all the time when I bring that up. So.
It's so embarrassing to look back on ourselves or whatever.
My buddy of mine suggested in 2004 that maybe our government was involved in 9/11, and I was like, I'll punch you in the mouth. Get out of my house. And then it was just 2 years later, I'm like, I'm sorry, bro. Can we have beers again?
Steven, we should have a whole episode devoted to just that now, because I'd be interested to see, even culturally really interested, not even just talking about the thing itself, because that could be a 10-day talk, but where you were culturally, and then what changed for you to be able to kind of see things differently is that process is the most interesting. And I think what we should really talk to people about more is that see yourself now, see yourself 10 years ago, and picture yourself 10 years from now. It's okay for those to all be totally different things and you still be you. I don't know.
I agree. And I don't know, I think there are guiding principles that you can hold on to forever. I don't think certain things need to change, but I do think that if you're not willing to at least examine changing almost everything about you every so often, then you're doing life wrong. One of the things I tell my wife is I try to at least once a month be what's the most recent thing I've changed my mind on. And
I think still hate cilantro. Is that something?
That'll never change. Cilantro.
That's a genetic thing.
That's the worst herb on the planet.
Does it taste like soap to you? Is that?
It's just soap. It's just soap. Yeah.
I remember this from college. I made something with cilantro, and you're like, I'm not eating that.
It's so bad. But yeah, I think Alden, you and I have talked about this before. It's just like being willing to change and being okay, like examining like yourself and like being truly honest about what you believe and like how you approach.
We had to talk about it because you've changed, I would say, pretty dramatically over
you
the
have
time
too,
that I've
you little shit.
But principles are intact, right? Like principles are the compass for all that.
Yeah.
But if, through experiencing life, if you don't change or even learning, if you're not learning or even paying attention.
And then here's a hack to this, right? Like if you want to be like this, like the smartest person in the room or whatever, like to assume that at like 18 or whatever that you like know everything is like ridiculous. And like the best way to know more is to identify where you're incorrect and then change it,
Yeah.
But
yeah, I love my dad. He's great dude. I brought up Bitcoin twice to him, and both times he says, I've done all I need to with finances. I don't need to even like look at Bitcoin. I don't want to hear about it. And so that kind of thing drives me up a wall. It's just like you could learn this one bit of information that might change your life and change.
What are you going to do when you wake up one day and all of a sudden your health records are on a blockchain?
Yeah.
And it's a whole nother thing you don't understand.
Yeah.
And then you're the idiot in the foyer with the 30 pages on the clipboard.
Or you wake up and your retirement's gone. Like, if all your retirement is in dollars and he's like 65 or something. I don't know. I don't remember what age he is, but around there. And like if you're not willing to like accept just a little bit of information to maybe ponder, just float around, that kind of thing drives me nuts. I'm still working on him. He'll get there. Hey,
maybe the Perth Mint will wake him up. Maybe maybe that could be part of because everyone's like, oh well, gold's been gold for thousands of years. And I was like, yeah, it's also been getting stepped on.
Yeah,
the whole thing about like there's so conservative and liberal like as politics like sort of aside, they kind of follow these, but there's like if you think about it in terms of like almost more the Jordan Peterson talks about this in a way, or like there's maybe less like I don't know, controversial figures that have talked about this, but like the conservative like way of thinking is more the risk of conservatism is rigidness to the point of like failure, whereas the risk of liberal thinking is chaos. You know what I mean? Like changing too many things without testing them to the point of failure.
You say yes to everything so much that you're eventually saying no to everything.
Yeah. One or the other. Yeah. And so that's why we need both, not just, parties. I'm not even saying that. I'm just saying both types of people, both ways of thinking, because we keep each other in balance. We keep each other in check. And I have found myself starting more on the like liberal side. And I still would say that like my brain, the way that I like to kind of think and do things is more like artistic and creative. And to be creative is to lend itself toward chaos, right? And my life has been chaotic at times, and like it has been a problem. And so I'm actually having to borrow from conservative thinking to give structure and stability to my life in a way that I didn't naturally find myself doing. And so that's where I think I am now here with you talking about these things, because I'm like, I've sort of like explored both extremes, and I'm like, neither one. I don't like this winner take all thing with this, because I'm like, that puts us in a really bad place if we go either way in the extreme way as a, if we're talking about as an individual life and just how I've adopted them personally, or as a nation, like it leaves you vulnerable to different things. Like if you were to go totally conservative or totally liberal, it's just, you're equally vulnerable for different reasons. But
that's a really good analysis. I like that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. That said, past few tests I've taken, if the political spectrum's on a grid, with an X, Y axis, instead of just like a left, right thing, I'm usually that bottom right pixel.
Yeah.
Me too.
You somehow found the 3D screen Z axis. And you're like, no,
That's so good.
I hear that.
Yeah, I've got nothing else to talk about today, unless y'all had any other topics you wanted to address.
Well, it's just, as far as school choice goes, actually getting school choice here in Georgia, at least, there's a few bills that are making scary progress that if they go through, Republicans will beat their chest and say that, I was the one that supported school choice, and it's some half-ass measure, as usual, of it's not actual school choice.
Does it impose restrictions on the schools that accept the voucher? That's
you limit so many that are eligible. You cap the tax refund or tax deduction.
Curriculum changes though?
Yes, yeah. Well, or you add the caveat of the standardized testing. Right. They always love to go back to that of like, you can have school choice, but you're still taking the standardized test. It's like
it can turn private schools into quasi state schools. Honestly,
yeah. Yes,
it's a double-edged sword when these bills are so
unless they're religiously centered, because that's a whole nother thing, and it's
as a private
there's some that seems like that's just the angle to get away from that stuff, and then there's others that they're doing the Lord's work.
Yeah, Arizona's bill was awesome. That is the model to emulate if you're trying to get legislators on board. Take a look at the one Arizona passed last year. It's amazing.
I'll look that up because I don't know much about that one.
I follow this issue pretty close just because like Corey DeAngelis and me talk a little bit because I run in the national Twitter and he sends me ideas and stuff.
Cool.
That's cool.
Well, and then, and you're up in Tennessee, you guys don't have a state income tax. We still do, despite, several years long of...
That's badass, by the way.
Yeah. Right. Despite several years of several $1 billion surpluses in our budget. And oddly enough, the surplus is almost the exact amount that they draw in from the state income taxes.
Yeah. I mean, almost exact. It was crazy this past. Yeah.
Very close.
And they gave it back to the people. It was they gave back like $100 and something per person.
And so over the last year or so, I've been face to face with every incumbent legislator that I could in my area. They're all Republican. Well, at least the ones that would talk to me.
We can talk about that even too. But go ahead.
And there's a couple of the Republicans. Yeah, they would talk to me long enough just to say, "Hell no, screw off."
Oh, right.
See you, bye.
That's not talking.
Hey, water's warm up here, boys. We got a good state party. Let's go, volunteers. Let's go.
Yeah.
So what part of Tennessee are you in, brother?
I'm in Nashville, man. I'm just in Antioch. It's just like a southeast suburb.
That's cool. Yeah.
You can tell I talk like a Yank because I lived most of my life in Minnesota and Wisconsin, but I love Tennessee. I was technically born here, and I love living here.
That's awesome, man. No, my grandpa has lived in like very, very north Georgia for a long time, and so we were kind of close to more like the Chattanooga area, and like it's super gorgeous. The state is beautiful. I'm interested in it for like political reasons for the most part. Like no place is perfect, right? But I love getting reports from people because like we're like 93% like that's where we're going, But
great.
I'll be in your neck of the woods.
I think it's the free state of the South. In some ways, we have it better than New Hampshire. We have better gambling laws. We have better property taxes. There's some things that are better here than in New Hampshire, and they claim that title all the time. Yeah.
Well, and overall, your craft beer is better in Georgia because that's I got a brother-in-law lives in Knoxville. I go to Nashville, go to Knoxville, go to Chattanooga, go around to different brew pubs because that's just I love beer.
I make
it as a hobby, by the way.
Or...
Yeah, and a lot of the folks I talk to around Knoxville, Nashville, Chattanooga are Atlanta refugees. They left our antiquated beer laws before we finally caved, 5-6 years ago and said, you can go to a brewery and buy beer.
Yeah.
And take home.
That was when we lived in Savannah. That was one of the craziest things for me were the alcohol laws. And it was archaic. In terms of
they still have the no Sunday thing before 11.
Sunday,
sure, but I'm like it was just like 6-7 years ago. It was you paid $20 for a tour, and your tour got you a wristband with like 5 samples.
Yeah,
we have some dry counties.
Yes,
yeah. Hopefully not the one that I'm living in.
Yours wouldn't be. Chattanooga's not.
Okay, thank goodness. I can't do that, man. It's not for me.
That says a lot about you, Alden.
I'm on the thing called Liberty Libations. Like I feel like I got to represent, the freedom of it to drink when I want.
I got the perfect one.
Yeah,
This is strong. This is strong, boys.
And it's legal most places. That's
yeah.
great.
Well, and it's A and W, right? Get that 2 for 1.
Not A or W. This is America.
Well, y'all, this has been great. This episode has been brought to you by Thomas Paine, A Lifetime of Radicalism. Go buy his book, as I'm going to do immediately following this. Yeah, Dave, thank you so much for hopping on, man. I know you're a busy dude. You got a lot of obligations with Libertarian Party, so thanks for coming on with us tonight.
Oh no, thank you guys. Thanks whoever buys it. I really appreciate it. And you guys are so fun to talk to. This is a great podcast. I'd love to come back. So
awesome. We appreciate it. Alden, Steven, thank y'all for dropping in as usual.
Yeah, man.
And cheers. There'll be a free Georgia podcast comes out on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, and then we're missing Liberty Libations next week because I'm watching March Madness, and y'all can shove it.
That's all right.
Go Vols.
So 2 weeks. Yeah, no. Giga Maggies. All right. Well, we'll see y'all in 2 weeks. Thanks for tuning in.
Peace out.
Thank you.